welcome to a video from thedigitallifestyle.com. This is my new Genesis collection for the Korg Modwave. So these are 36 performances and there's some programs as well, all inspired by Genesis and the classic sounds from Tony Banks. So including this collection, I've got sounds going way back to the 70s with the Watcher of the Sky Mellotron strings, through the middle 70s through Cinema Show and the ARP Pro Soloist type sounds. We've got Follow You, Follow Me leads, we've got organ sounds, we've got into the 80s, we've got the CS80 type sounds from Behind the Lines, we've got into the later 80s, into like Invisible Touch era, we've got DX7 type sounds, and I've even got a VXX sound from Genesis' last studio album, Calling All Stations. I've got some sounds that we use live as well. So there's some classic sounds in there, so I hope you enjoy these. Right, so let's go through them. So the first one I've got is the Abacab Organ. So a useful organ sound for any performances, but this has got a nice bit of a chorus on it and that Tony Banks knew. And I think he used various times he used ARP Quadra or a Prophet 10, a Prophet 5 to do those organ sounds. And later it was DX7. I've used a DW8000 waveform that are in the Modwave, so I've got that sort of 80s waveform with the chorus to give it that effect. So going the opposite end, this is a sound called Alien Afternoon, which was used on Alien Afternoon from Calling All Stations. Used in a couple of the Genesis tracks from around that era, sort of early 90s, and it's got a nice digital quality to it. I've actually got a digital set available as well, you can get it from digitallifestyle.com, but this is Alien Afternoon. So a model on the Ensoniq VFX type sound. Incidentally, I'm recording this on the Modwave native with the hardware from an actual Modwave. So if you see a slight discrepancy in the patch descriptions on the two, it's because I'm changing them both at the same time. Sometimes I forget. But actually the sound you're hearing is from the native version. But I did the design on the hardware version, but of course they're both identical in sound. So the next one, the next set are ARP Pro Soloist sounds, and this is the trumpet one, which is used on Cinema Show. So that's the kind of sound you get from that one. So it's a nice, it's probably got a little bit more chorus than the original, but you can dial that back, but it's a really nice sort of trumpet sound. So that one's a fuzz guitar sound, which is modelled on the Pro Soloist as well. And the idea of this one, I think, on the Pro Soloist was to go from that sharp guitar sound into the hollow square sound, which to give it that sort of, as though guitars going into sort of feedback. So there you go, that's that one. And we've got Telstar as well, which is also one used on the same track as well. So that's the Telstar sound used on Cinema Show. I really like that from Pro Soloist. It's got a nice resonance sound. I'm definitely no Tony Banks, so I'm not going to be playing the full solo. Really nice sound, that one. So similar to that one as well, we've got the sound from In the Cage. So that's the In the Cage sound. I'm definitely going to be playing the In the Cage solo. I'm definitely going to be playing the In the Cage solo, but that's the sound. So moving on from that, we've got the Taurus bass pedal sound, used by Genesis a lot. That deep, thunderous bass pedal type sound. This is probably a bit bright. You might want to bring the envelope intensity down, the release down slightly. But it's up to you. But I do like it when it's nice and bright on there, and you can really hear that bass sound. That's the big brass sound from behind the lines. This, I think on the original, was done with a CS80, or it could have been a Prophet 10, but I detect the pitch modulation there, especially when you hear the live version on 3-Side Live. So I've got that in there as well. So it's a nice big bright brass sound. I really like that one. And to go with that one, I've done a layered one which layers that brass sound, or a single layer of that brass sound, with a CP80, the electric piano that Tony Banks used a lot in the 70s and 80s. That was used a lot live, so you can incorporate that. The brass sound itself is using just a single layer, so that big sound is just using 2 oscillators. That is from Domino, the track off Invisible Touch, the longer track off there. Now, actually what was used was the Fairlight R sound, and that isn't in the Modwave. I do have a separate sample set coming for the Modwave that includes original Fairlight sound, so you'll get that. But for now, I'm using the bottle blow sound really. You can include that. Now for Domino itself, so in Domino, there's kind of a soft lead sound in the first part, so I've included that. So it's using the Wavestation, actually, samples, which wouldn't have been used at the time, but that's how I got close to that sound. It's a nice soft sound. You can use. It's a nice lead sound, so you can use that in other stuff, obviously. Then in the second half of Domino, there's like a pitched sound in the lead, and it could be an emulator sample, it could be a synclavier, or it could be a DX7. But I've gone for this. So I've done that, and there's a bit of pitch envelope on the layer. That's the pad sound on Invisible Touch. So it's quite subtle, but it's based on a DX7 pad, so a nice generic pad you could use it as well. We'll come back to Invisible Touch. Now I've got a couple of fading lights sounds in here. Now I've done a split version and there's individual sounds as well. The split version is harder to play on a small keyboard, but that's the string sounds from Fading Lights, which was based on Korg Wavestation sounds. And then in the right hand, you've got the Minilead sound. I've got those later in this demo split on their own as well, but a really nice, lovely string sound. Now, also took a Wavestation. Home by the Sea was done, I think, on a synclavier. I've got a synclavier, but when Genesis played live in the 90s on the We Can't Dance tour, they used, Tony Banks used a Wavestation, which is similar to that sound you've just heard for the Fairlight split. So that's a kind of Wavestation version of it that was used live. And then also on that track as well, you hear some sort of glockenspiel type bells going through it or going upwards, which was done from synclavier. So I've put those in. We're using a bit of modulation. I think we use a bit of FM modulation to get that effect as well. Now for Invisible Touch, the 90s live version, Tony Banks used a Roland JD800 live. It may have used DX as well, but I've got the JD800 sound. I've done this with 2 layers. Some have got pitch modulation on them, some are spread, and they're all velocity sensitive to give you the. So that's that. Just give you a nice. So it's got a nice touch sensitive sound, velocity sensitive sound there. Give it a nice velocity sensitive sound there and a nice stereo spread on it. Right, so going back to the Mama album, this is the Ghost sound made by Synclavier. So I did that one using a bit of pitch modulation. Which is what you can hear on there. So that's the sort of the Ghost sound on Mama. And talking of Mama as well, you've got the organ sound. Which was originally done on the ARP Quadra by Tony Banks, and he was using a drum machine, I think like the cowbell sound of drum machine, as an audio input to trigger the Quadra, because you could trigger the Quadra through an audio input, and it gives you that stabbed effect. I've also got the pad sound as well. I'm using CS80 type sounds on there to get a really big pad. It probably was a CS80, but I really like that, especially when it goes from the C to C6. So it's a nice pad sound. Right, so now I've got some Mellotron sounds. So this is the string sound. Not used from Watching the Sky, because that's come to that in a second. And then the Watcher sound. So the Watcher sound was the Mellotron Tony Banks used. The Mellotron used tapes, and different tracks on the tapes had different sounds, and you could choose there was a selector to choose between the sounds, and Tony Banks put it in the middle of two tracks, which was the brass and the violin chamber sound. So you got both of those sounds, and that's what you've got there. Have a listen to Watch of the Sky if you've not heard it. Absolutely a brilliant intro. Really hear the Mellotron at its best there, sounding really ethereal and out of this world. I really love that type sound. Another one I couldn't resist putting in was the Mellotron Choir. So that's the choir used a lot by Tony Banks, especially live. And we've also got the Mellotron Flute and brass sound. The Mellotron Flute and brass sound you could use on something like Firth and Fifth, but it's not what it's actually used on the album version, because that was an actual flute, Peter Gabriel playing the flute, but it's a good sound for that. Right, getting back onto the 80s. So that's the Quadra sound from Abacab. Fifth sounds on there. This is from the Quadra organ sound from Alone Tonight off Duke, and it's a really nice mellow organ sound. So I really like that one, so I picked that one out. And if you're a fan of Tony Banks, you know that he likes his chorused organ, so here's a Quadra version of that chorused organ. So it's like an older version of the one I showed you at the beginning there. Instead of being based on the 80s one, it's based on the 70s Quadra type one. We've got a few Quadra sounds here as well. Follow You, Follow Me solo. Really nice warm lead sound on that one. And then if you know the mother load, that's got a lead sound on deep in the mother load, which I'm not going to play, but that's from the Quadra. It's got the mother load lead. That's not the mother load lead, I can't play that part, but it's a nice lead sound. You can use. So here is another classic Tony Banks one. This is the phased organ. And Tony Banks uses that quite a lot, especially live. I love the sound of the organ with the phase on it like that. So the next one is RMI analog piano, used on carpet crawlers, which I'm not going to play because you need the double-handed technique from Tony Banks. It's a nice soft sound, and it's what closest you get to a piano from an analog instrument in those days. Another piano is just the straight CP80 electric grand. So you can incorporate that in there. The next one I've got is just a kind of generic Tony Banks sort of 70s live sound, which especially. So this you could use on numerous tracks. Tony Banks kind of sometimes stick to one sound was playing live that they would use. They wouldn't use the exact recreation of the record. So this is. So it's a Quadra type sound, a nice lead sound. Right, next ones are the ones I mentioned to earlier. These are from the Wavestation, and this is the lead sound of Fading Lights. It's called Minilead. It's also used on calling all stations on numerous tracks. So Tony Banks used the Wavestation, which to get this sound, and the way that the Wavestation works by wave sequencing through the different samples. The Modwave doesn't use wave sequencing, but you can use wave tables, and that's what I'm doing with this sound. You can see it switching through the wave tables, and I'm using dual ones on here as well. So I'm using the AB oscillator to go through two of them, and I'm using the second oscillator to go through another one. So I've got three that are sort of cycling through on there. So that's how I got that far. I really like that one. And that's a mono version. And there's a poly version as well, which Tony Banks used on Fading Lights for sort of the end of the solo. So I've included that on there. And to go with that is one of my favourite pad sounds. This is the warm string sound. I love that warm sound, and that is using the Wavestation samples that Tony Banks used on the Wavestation. So these aren't samples I put in; these are built into the Modwave. Yeah, so really nice warm sound there, and I've used a bit of stereo modulation as well on that. So those are some classic sounds from Genesis and Tony Banks for use on the Modwave, and really to inspire you, hopefully, to come up with your own type things, and you can take these patches and modify them, adopt them, do whatever you want with them. So if you like these sounds, all the these kind of sounds are in all my other collections as well, which are all a free download. So please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get that subscriber number up. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.